We are here today to celebrate the work and career of the Emeritus Professor Colin Williams. Most people in this room have worked with Colin over the years, and if you work in the field of language policy and planning, you will have come across his work. Our first speaker, Dr. Dylan Foster-Evans, is the head of the School of Welsh at Cardiff University and has been in position since 2017. Dylan is very interested in the relationship between poetry, identity, cultural and the environment. He is also very interested in the role of the Welsh language in the education system in Wales and the different types of Welsh used in modern Wales. Can I therefore invite you to the stage to open the conference, Dylan? Thank you, Bethan, and good morning to you all. Welcome. We're not at the School of Welsh this morning, as you may have realised, walking along the corridors, the long corridors, to make your way to this room, but to Cardiff University. This is our home for the day. Our spiritual home for the day with Colin. Welcome to you all, and in particular to Emeritus Professor Colin Williams, his family and friends and everyone else who has joined us today. We're very happy to welcome you today. And thank you to those of you who have travelled from afar to be here. We really appreciate it, and I know that Colin will also appreciate it. And it's a measure of his influence and his ability to maintain friendships across many continents. I know it's a bit of a cliche to open a conference with the words, "It's an honour to be here." But today, those words are absolutely genuine and meaningful on a professional and also on a personal level. In fact, it's more of an honour than I could possibly convey in a few minutes to be here today to honour Professor Colin Williams, a colleague, a friend, and someone who I and everyone else here today admire very much. So it's a day to congratulate Colin, and I'd like to congratulate him on his latest appointment, Emeritus Professor at the School of Welsh. He has been an Honourable Professor and before that a Research Professor, so now he's completed the hat trick with his third appointment. And he continues to be very hard-working and very supportive of the School of Welsh here at Cardiff University. Another cliché is the saying that first impressions last. The first time Colin made an impression on me was long before I met him, and I don't think I've ever mentioned this to him before. It was in a library in one of the universities in England back in the early 1990s. I think I was writing an essay on some topic and I was trying to find a way of avoiding that topic, and I opened a journal and noticed something else that grabbed my attention. And in that journal, which was published in 1985 by Mr. Colin H. Williams, there was an article. And the title of that article has stayed with me: Public Gain and Private Grief, the Ambiguous Nature of Contemporary Welsh. At the time, I was an undergraduate student at university in England and was enjoying a new world, but also missing home and Wales. And the title and the entire article, in fact, made quite an impression on me. Public Gain and Private Grief. And that's a summary in 5 words of Colin's incomparable ability to understand the power of structure and humanity in the context of the future of our language. I was thinking about that article recently About 3 decades later, when I read a wonderful poem by Professor Emyr Lewis, Anadl Enwau, which appeared in Festdrift Colin in 2002. And I think the spirit of this poem remains. I'm just going to quote a little bit of the beginning of that poem. What is language? A cheap mechanism, inhuman, devoid of inspiration. A soul? There is nothing there, save wind and snippets of memory, and a mouth opening and closing in a storm of sounds and gestures. This is language, hope and woe, bitterness and children at play, our long memory and our onward direction. It is our... I don't think that anybody else has showed us the way forward and the direction we should be taking more so than Colin. I don't think that we would all be here today representing our various organisations today were it not for him. Not least, of course, is the campaign by the Welsh Government for 2050 and achieving 1 million speakers. I don't think that would exist in its present form were it not for Colin's work. After seeing his name for that first time in 1985, years later, I came to Cardiff and became a colleague of his. And I was then able to connect Colin the man with Colin the author of that article. He had been appointed a few years earlier, I think it's about 30 years ago now, following the inspirational vision of Professor Glyn Jones, and it's brilliant to see Professor Glyn Jones here today with us. He embedded policy, science and language planning in the School of Welsh as part of the discipline. And by doing that, he brought many intellectual and practical strands together, and that started off by appointing Colin, and since then the field has prospered both in Cardiff and in other places. But from the outset, it became clear to me that Colin was unique in many ways. First of all, he was the only member of staff in the School of Welsh who had a sofa bed in his office. I noticed that straight away. And I hasten to add that I never saw anyone, and certainly not Colin, sleeping on that sofa bed. Many of you will remember that sofa bed or futon, I'm sure. I don't know where it has ended up. Maybe Colin can tell us later. Nobody slept on this sofa bed, but it was a comfortable place to sit, although not too comfortable, for postgraduate students and some inexperienced lecturers to get together and discuss language policy and language planning and all sorts of other matters as well with the man himself. That sofa bed is one of many, many locations across the world that have offered Colin a stage to lead and inspire in his field of expertise. When I started at the School of Welsh, as it was the Department of Welsh, I remember Professor Sianna Davies referring to Colin's contribution to linguistic aspects of the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland, and I thought quietly to myself that was quite a high bar to reach in terms of public contribution in this department. Colin has always been very modest, but not in a way that lessens the importance of his field of expertise at all, and I think that's very important. His favourite saying, I think, or his catchphrase, which is linked to him, I don't know if you know this, Colin, is "So what?" About a piece of research, a piece of work, so what? Not in a dismissive way, in a way that would convey that he thinks his field is more important. He doesn't say, so what to me about my research field of the Middle Ages. However, his constant advice to researchers and colleagues was always to make sure that their work was of the highest standard possible, and also that it would have the biggest impact possible in whichever way that was, whichever field they were working in. That was the message that was always conveyed to us, indirectly or directly, through his guidance and leadership. And as we consider his incredible contribution, I don't think there's any question easier to answer than so what. Everyone here knows just as well as I do, and maybe even better, the answer to that question in the context of Colin's work. So just a short personal word from me. It's very difficult to summarise many decades of work and someone who I admire so much, but I'm confident that today will convey that to us all. Once again, welcome to you all. Let's move on with the day, and thank you to Colin for being a colleague, a friend, and such a supporter for me.